welcome to Ask Earl Anything number 35. In today's show, we've got a few questions, and I'm looking forward to doing them. And I hope you guys will enjoy the questions. So let's jump right on into the questions. Remember, your questions make the show. I say that every week. So let's jump right on in. First one comes from Tekken Drums. He said, great episode. This is from last episode. I have a question. I hope you can bring it across the right way. Do you think your passion for drums comes from wanting to play a certain style of music or just playing drums? Take care. I know it's not just playing a certain style of music because I play all styles of music, as most of you guys know that watch my channel. And it's not just to play drums, because I think drums are just something that's just a part of me after 40-something years of playing music. I think my passion comes across because of my love for music, and my love for the instrument, and my love for everything that I'm doing, musically. So, what you see coming across in music when I'm playing on any song I'm playing on is I chose the song because I like the song. I chose the song because I'm challenged by playing the song. Or I chose the song or the topic I'm talking about because of some interest I have in the topic or whatever it is I'm talking about or trying to demonstrate. So most of my videos around jazz lessons and stuff is because I have an interest in jazz. I don't consider myself a jazz expert. But I have a love for jazz, and I love listening to jazz, and I love playing jazz, and I love the opportunity to, just to basically share a little bit of my passion for that particular genre of music. I love rock drumming. See, I'm actually a jack of all trades, master of none type player, unfortunately. I've never just honed into one style and became, that's my thing. I like playing all different styles. I grew up in an era where that was what was required of a musician, was if you wanted to play gigs, you had to play all styles of music. So I've always strived to play all styles of music. And that's my choice in cymbals, is something that can sound good in a jazz context and a rock context, or a church worship context, or a pop context. And then so I pick equipment for that reason. And the same thing with, why I play. And the passion that comes through is just because I love music. I love playing music. So I don't think it's a specific genre. I'm not just a one genre person. I'm actually a guy who likes playing a wide variety of styles. And I enjoy that aspect of it. So hope that answers the question. The next question is from 2112 Drums. And he asks, what are your thoughts on Wuhan gongs? I love gongs, okay? And I have a couple gongs. I'm not going to bring them into the picture today. But when I was in college, I got to play some Paiste gongs. Paiste gongs are really expensive gongs, but they're really well made. And the Paiste symphonic gongs are beautiful instruments, but they are extremely expensive. So one of the reasons why I like the Wuhan gongs or the Dream gongs, I have 2 Dream gongs. And by the way, Dream cymbals are made in China, so they're made out of that. I probably made in the Wuhan factory or a factory that has some guys that used to work at the Wuhan factory. But the Dream gongs and the Wuhan gongs are all coming from that Chinese gong technology way of making gongs. And it's old world. And the first Wuhan gong I heard was back in the 90s. It was called a wind gong. And I eventually bought a wind gong. I've been looking for wind gongs for 20-something years. And the Wuhan gongs are relatively reasonably priced, I would say. You could still get a 28-inch wind gong probably for, 200 and something bucks probably. Okay, the gong I have is an 18-inch wind gong, which sounds like a 22-inch wind gong, and that particular gong cost me $114. So I mean, I didn't pay a lot of money for the gong, but it's a beautiful symbol. It's a beautiful gong. It's a beautiful thing to listen to. So I also like the depth of the wind gongs, but they are completely different animals than listening to Paiste gongs. I mean, Paiste gongs are beautiful instruments, and I don't think Paiste makes anything like a wind gong. Now, Zildjian's been making a wind gong, and I don't know if they make it or if they have Wuhan make it for them, because it looks like a Wuhan wind gong. Same with the Sabian one. Same with their symphonic gongs. I'm not sure Zildjian makes gongs in their factory. And if somebody has any information on it, you can tell me the truth. But I think the real gong makers today are the Wuhan gongs, okay, and Paiste. Paiste makes some beautiful gongs. Then there's a couple other manufacturers somewhere else that make gongs. I think UFIT might make some gongs too, the company out of Italy, because they cast bells and their cymbals are made out of a cast bronze, and it's a B20 bronze, but it is cast as opposed to flattened out, turned into a little nugget, then flattened out through a roller. They actually cast their cymbals. They actually shape the bell and everything, and they cast it like they're making a bell. But I think UFIT makes some gongs too. So you might want to look at the UFIT gongs. If I'm not mistaken, I think they make gongs too. But Paiste gongs are beautiful instruments, but I love the sound of a Wuhan gong. It's got a deep richness for a very thin gong. And the Dream gongs are that same alloy. So I like the sound of wind gongs. So I would say go for it, 2112. Definitely a good call there. All right. The next question comes from Mike Frisano, and he said to me, what are your thoughts on using Aquarian cymbal springs to save breaking chinas? Okay. So, I brought this into the picture. This is an Aquarian cymbal spring, just in case you're wondering. I'll take the china off. This is a cymbal spring. And this was created by Roy Burns, the Aquarian company. And he created these back in the late 70s, early 80s, I saw them. Now, I will say this about this cymbal spring. Once you put it on a stand, like where I have it now, these threads are toast. So this cymbal spring is married to this arm forever. It's made of rubber and plastic, and there's a rubber and plastic top that goes on it like this. And the concept is that when the china's on it, it kind of moves. So it kind of wobbles a little bit. Okay? I found it to be very effective on a china because it really does bend and go with when you're hitting it. Now what I do with these, I don't like the rubber on rubber, so I put a piece of felt on mine, and then I flip the cap upside down on it. And it's tight enough. But you see how it bounces around? It kind of moves like this. I'm moving it, by the way. I didn't do that. Okay? And the concept is because it's bouncing around and you're playing through it, you're less likely to crack it, because what a lot of guys do is they choke it down like that and has no movement, and a lot of times you end up breaking china cymbals. Now, I've never broken a china cymbal, even on a cymbal stand, but I think it does have some merit. It definitely does. Now, there's two levels of it. I think the yellow is the less heavy duty, and then they got a red one which is really heavy duty. But I think they're great for china cymbals, and I think they're great. They might be great for other cymbals like splash cymbals and stuff, where you're going to play through them and you can crack them easily. I've cracked splash cymbals. Me and splash cymbals definitely get cracked. I've definitely cracked a few of those. Because the way I like my splash cymbals to be is choked down. I like to really choke down on it so it doesn't move anywhere. So I think this would be great for a splash cymbal that you're going to choke down on real tight. But yeah, I'm a fan of the cymbal spring for my china, and I use it a lot on my china cymbal. That's pretty much where I use it. So I would say it definitely works. So I've not cracked a cymbal china ever on it. I've never been a big fan of them on regular cymbal stands, because if you notice, I like to keep my cymbals loose with nothing on it. So that's my favorite way to do it. Now, some of my stands won't let me do that because then all the felt and stuff falls on the ground every time you pick the cymbal up. Or I have some sleeves that move up and down, and then it becomes metal on metal. I don't like that feeling. But I use this clip here. I forget what this is called. There's a name for this. What's the name of this bad boy? It's called the cymbal crown. And I like my crash cymbals on the cymbal crown because, again, it's just a piece of rubber that goes onto your cymbal stand. But when I put it on, it doesn't pop off easily. That's the nice thing about it. Now, it does get chewed up. And I've had this probably now for about 7-8 years. So it's still there. This cymbal is on just a regular DW arm, not on a DW stand, but a DW arm. And this one just sits there, so it works out fine. But yeah, I definitely say pick up a cymbal spring for your China if you think you're going to crack them, for sure. Now, I had another question from Brian Corey. He asked me what the Peisty China was in my video last week. And that was the China type, 18-inch China type, which is my 2002 18-inch China type from about 1984. My friend Steve Dupree traded me a cymbal. He's got my 17-inch Zildjian Crash, and I have the 2002 18-inch China type. So this is like my new favorite China these days. So definitely a fan of this one. All right. And I think my last question of the week comes from Drum Covers by Bill. Hi Bill, how you doing? Thanks for asking a question this week. And he said, what are your thoughts on electronic drums? I apologize if this has been asked before. I know you have lots of cymbals and kits, all of which can be put into a single drum module and changed at will. Have a great weekend. That's a great point, Bill, about sampling your drums. And by the way, I have sampled my drums and put a few on my sample pad before. Okay? Let me put it to you this way. My thoughts on electronic drums are, and on my history of electronic drums is, back in the 80s, I wanted to be the first guy to have a Simmons kit. Actually, I wanted Syn drums. I'll go back to Syn drums. Anybody remember Syn drums? Probably not. Most guys don't remember Syn drums, but Syn drums were on some hit records back in the 70s, the late 70s, some soft rock favorites. Here's a couple that come to mind. Goodbye Girl. The Goodbye Girl theme by Bread. It was actually David Gates of Bread. Had a doo-doo-doo-doo. Had that bending pitch thing. Doo-doo. Jeff Porcaro used them on that. Rick Marotta is famous for using the Syn drums with Linda Ronstadt on tour. And he was doing it on some of her hit songs back on that one record that she had in mid-70s. 76, 77-ish. That's when the Syn drum showed up. Right along the Syn drum was the Snare. And the Snare was an all-in-one module. You had the buttons on the side and you hit it. And you get that same... And you do the LFO. You can turn the low-frequency oscillator down. You get white noise stuff, you know. Which is that's kind of cool. And it was very unique for that time. The Cars used it. The band The Cars. Just what I needed. Just what I needed. They had that clappy kind of sound. I think he was also using a Simmons clap trap, which was one of the early Simmons pad things that made a clap sound. But when the SDS5 kit, the 6-sided hexagonal kit, showed up on MTV, with bands like the Eurythmics and Culture Club and Heart, and there's so many videos out during that time. Van Halen had them. Alex Van Halen had a whole set of Simmons toms. Everybody was using them. That's when I wanted electronic drums. By the time I got electronic drums, the Simmons drums were almost out. I picked up a SDS1, which was the sample pad, where you had an EEPROM, you put it in and you got sounds and had a run generator in it. I've talked about that before. When I really got into electronic drums with MIDI was the D40, Alesis D4. And I had an Alesis D4 and a couple pads. And then I traded that for a Noble Cooley snare drum about 1994 or 5 to my friend Pat O'Donnell. And then I got out of the electronic thing completely. And then all of a sudden, The cat drums came out. The Dawes pads came out. They were making drum kits with not mesh heads at first, but with foam in them and stuff. There was a kit that was made that was just pads designed to trigger the D4 and the D5, and then the Roland kit showed up. And when the V drums came out, it was huge. Now I played on the original Roland kit, the original electronic Roland kit with the almost six-sided. It's like a triangle shape, but it was really a six-sided triangle because it had these like strange little corners that were short. They couldn't look like Simmons drums, but they were six-sided. Roland basically came out with theirs, that version, and it was like a kind of rubberized tabletop. Right around the time the R8 drum machine showed up. I've been in this electronic thing in and out all these years because I never had a 707, but I had a Roland TR505, one of their first cheap drum machines. Then I had an HR16 Alesis and a D4. So I've had some of the technology in the Simmons SDS1 pad, but by the time it got to the V drums, and then I had to play them a couple times in churches and stuff, I was not really impressed with the V drums, even though, and I guess what didn't impress me about them was they sounded like real drums, except for they had about 4 or 5 levels of dynamic, and that 4 or 5 levels of dynamic didn't do anything for me. Now, if you wanted a guy to sound consistent, you put him on V drums. Because you hit a kick drum, you'll get a very consistent kick drum. Even if you're not hitting it hard, you'll get that same boom, boom, all the time. But the difference between a player with dynamics on a kick drum is, on a real kit, you've got to really play it hard if you want to get a hard sound. And the V drums, you just touched it, you got the sound. You hit the snare drum, you got the sound. So to me, it just wasn't a turn on to play them. Plus, they cost a lot of dough. And I didn't have the money for a V-drum kit. Now, I will tell you, in the last couple years, I have been thinking about electronic drums. But here's why. Last year, we were thinking about moving, possibly. Like, if I didn't get a certain level job, I might have to sell my house and say, okay, studio's over, let's move into an apartment, or let's move into a condo and let's downsize our life. So I started looking at electronic kits. And there are some really cool electronic kits. But if I was going to do an electronic kit today, I would probably do it with Superior Drummer or Drumagog or Steven Slate drums, or one of those sampling, laptop-based, sounds in the box kind of thing versus a module. I mean, you still have to have the module to get the MIDI in, but once you get a nice set of pads and you go MIDI into your unit, your DAW, or even if you're taking like main stage out with you on a laptop and playing electronic drums, that'd be cool. But I was thinking about having an electronics kit for a condo, okay, where I could still have my studio set up in a bedroom, and that would be my thing. Kind of like Rob Niehaus from Germany. I think he's from Germany. Rob Niehaus has a nice V-drum kit in the corner, and he's got his, or Mike Luke, or Beats by Jay, any of those guys that do this regularly, or you, Bill, you've got your setup, you know what I mean? But those guys, especially Mike Luke, he's really into triggering sounds off of his DAW. And that would be the way I would go in an electronic kit if I was going to do it. But the fact I didn't have to move and I'm still got my studio and stuff, I'd much rather play acoustic drums. I just think you get more levels and dynamics out of a cymbal than you're ever going to get off of a pad. And that to me is half of my playing is about getting different levels of sounds off of a cymbal or a hi-hat or a snare or a kick or a tom. It's all about the touch. And I think you lose the touch in electronic drums. Now, if you don't have that option, you have to do it, go for it, I'm not going to say anything bad about electronic drums. And as a matter of fact, I use them occasionally. I got my SDSX, sample pad here. I thought the Octopad was cool. I used to use an Octopad 1. Another electronic thing that I'd love to have is a hand sonic. You know, Yamaha's got a really cool sample pad type thing too. There are some really cool stuff that's nice toys to have, but in actuality, in what I'm doing, I don't really need to jump in to the electronic thing yet. So I will continue to look at the electronic thing until it comes in. Now, I will tell you a guy that I like his stuff that he's doing with electronics a lot, and that would be Bill Morehouse. Okay, he's got the V-drum kit with real cymbals. I think that might be a kind of like hybrid thing for me, the real cymbals. I looked at those Gen 16 cymbals from Zildjian. They're cool, but they're still not quite there yet. So we're still not quite there with the electronic cymbals. Maybe the Jabaki cymbals are really cool. I'm not sure yet. I've never played them. But all I'm saying is, for me, my level of playing, having played professionally, having played gigs out, all that kind of stuff, I would only have an electronic kit if I had a living situation that basically put me into my own little small bedroom studio, and playing acoustic drums is going to kill the neighbors. By the way, I did my wife's first album, Toward the Lamb, which is on, I have a YouTube playlist of it. If you guys want to listen to it someday, just come on my channel and look at the YouTube playlist, Toward the Lamb. I did that in a bedroom, 11 by 11 bedroom, and I recorded these live drums and some of these cymbals in that room for most of the album. I would say 8 of the 10 songs were recorded in the bedroom. Okay, I did 2 at my friend's studio, where he took me in and we used his cool outboard gear and, you know, preamps and stuff. But other than that, I mean, it can be done in a bedroom with acoustic drums if you have neighbors that can deal with you. All right? So I am not against electronic drums. I guess most of you guys realize that I can talk both sides of anything if I want to. I'm kind of a down the middle guy on everything in life. You know, I try to stay in the middle. I don't want to offend anybody. I think there's places for electronic drums. I think there's places for acoustic drums. My playing style, acoustic drums are the way I would go. But if I was put into an electronic scenario where I had to go electronic, I would find a way to still make Earl sound like Earl on an electronic kit. And I have done it when I've played in churches. Okay? Anyhow, thanks for watching Ask Earl Anything. Your questions make the show. I do appreciate your questions. I do appreciate your feedback. Thank you for watching. And I hope you had a great time watching this show. Like, please subscribe. Please ask questions for next week. And have a great week. Bye.